Howdy, folks. Today we're going to find out how high-end retouching is evolving in the era of AI, mobile photography, and cinematic composites. We're talking workflows, industry shifts, and the creative process of shaping iconic images right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. We've spent literally hundreds of hours interviewing some of the most renowned photographers and creatives of our time, giving you access to knowledge and expertise that's not available anywhere else. As always, I'm your host, Kirsten Nutz, and if you're like me and you enjoy free podcasts and YouTube content, you can become a supporter of the show by buying us a coffee over on buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us create more exciting episodes for you. But of course, you're more than welcome to say no hard feelings. Just know that your support really does make a difference. And hey, don't forget, you can also sign up for the Camera Shake newsletter over at www.camerashakepodcast.com for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and much, much more. Now, without further ado, though, let's give it up for today's special guest, retoucher, educator, and visual wizard, whose fingerprints are literally all over some of Hollywood's biggest visuals. It's the one and only Lisa Carney. Lisa, good to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me back.
It's always great talking to you. Give us a bit of an update what you've been working on since the last time we spoke to you over here.
Oh, so much has changed. So much has changed. So work-wise, things are definitely shifting quicker than I expected in terms of AI and traditional work. I am leaning more into my photography and more into mobile photography and that kind of workflow for professional work. Not for hobbyists, but for professional work. So yeah, things are interesting. I've been doing a lot of traveling with my mobile photography. So that's been exciting. A lot of portrait shooting, etc.
That's actually, yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, I see you, on social media and stuff. You've been to France, you've been to Portugal, I think.
Yeah, Africa, yeah, all over. It's been pretty exciting. Yeah.
You know what? Really, what I find really interesting is what you mentioned about mobile photography and the impact that it has on your professional workflow. Give us a little bit of an idea of how mobile photography actually fits into this really high end retouching.
Yeah. All right. So first of all, capturing assets. So more and more, I'm actually capturing assets I need to fill in on posters and whatnot. Posters, who prints anymore? It's all digital. You know what I mean? For entertainment work, I'll capture more and more assets. But also, I use a lot of Lightroom. I'm a Lightroom Mobile girl. It's my favorite thing. And I'm going to tell you something a little embarrassing. I am faster on this phone with Lightroom than I am on desktop Lightroom. Now, look, I know they're the same thing. I know. But my hands are faster. So more and more, I'm sending my images to my phone to process and then send it back to the computer to work on my large station. Don't tell anyone that. Oh, wait, we're telling everyone. Wait.
Well, I had an interesting conversation along those lines with Jesus Ramirez the other day. And the thing is, for me, I find Lightroom Mobile super useful, especially when I'm traveling, especially when I'm preparing images for social media. It's just so much easier because everything's on your phone or your iPad, and then you upload it straight away, to Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be, Blue Sky, whatever. The workflow the simplicity in that workflow is just second to none. You just can't do that with an actual camera. And although I could say to myself, oh well, but I want to capture this image with 45 megapixels and yada. Still, there's a lot of kerfuffle involved in getting the card out, putting it into a card reader, uploading it to your computer, starting Lightroom Classic, da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And then you're sort of bound to this one spot, your computer.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some thoughts about this. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I think it's helpful to compartmentalize your work and or your business and or your photography needs. So I have my personal work I do, and then I have client files. So I do a lot of client direct social media content production. It's a really great bread and butter type of business. I am actually capturing processing, extending canvas, adding type, adding effects on this and delivering it while I'm in the driveway. Like I haven't left the location yet. So you can't do that on a large sensor camera. But what's the job? If the job is social media production and the fidelity is good enough, great. It's not a billboard. It's not a poster. So I think it's good to kind of find lanes for a workflow.
I think you're absolutely right. This is what I always say. It's like, you always have to think about what the raison d'être is. Like, why are we doing this? Because otherwise it might be total overkill. Like, for instance, in my sort of day-to-day headshot commercial imagery sort of thing, if I'm shooting I'll give this example. If I'm shooting an email, if I'm shooting like a photo for an email signature that's like 190 by 190 pixels, the level of retouching that goes into that final product is considerably less than if it's something that's going to be blown up and it's going to end up on the side of a bus, let's say. So there's always that relativism, whatever the word is.
I'll take that word. Yes.
Yeah. Relative. I don't even know what the actual word is. So do you find that your process has changed dramatically over the last year and a half?
100% changed. I mean, it's just gone. And I mean, imagine one of the things. So I'll give you a specific example. I have a healthcare client and I go to a clinic and I shoot, capture pictures. I have to say capture now. I don't know. We don't say shoot anymore in America. Capture images. And while I'm there, I'm working out the ratios because, social media buys, you have the vertical, you have the horizontal. And then, some of the product shots, because they sell products in that clinic, I'm like, oh crap, I need to move over 2 inches on the right. I don't get back to the studio and go, oh, I wish I would have moved over 2 inches to the right, because I'm doing all that processing right there. And even to the extent, I don't know if this is pertinent to the conversation, but there's Photoshop on the mobile now. I use Photoshop on mobile to extend canvas sometimes. And like, I don't limit myself to single apps, single usage apps. I use like 4 or 5 apps in one flow. And I find this makes it profitable because the budgets have been dropping so much. And as I said, client direct is not a high paying industry. It's mom and pop shops. So I did not focus on client direct before. It wasn't worth my time.
How did you get into that? How did you make that shift?
Okay, we're about being direct here, right?
Sure.
Fear. Like my industry, entertainment industry, high-end retouching is shifting so quickly. And the amount of production is drastically reducing. I mean, how many movies are put out this year? Not that many. There's streaming, but even streaming content has been reduced. So I'm kind of someone who looks at down the road and is like, wait a minute, money's going to be shifting. I better reach out. So I started volunteering in my local community for the public library and the City of Commerce. And then all of a sudden that just opened me up to a huge plethora of direct clients. So I volunteered, like shooting portraits for the local library and for the board, that kind of thing. And then it just opened up.
Yeah, I think that's just generally a really good approach. Start with your immediate community and so work your way. That was a massive mistake that I made actually originally when I moved to where I'm living now, before the pandemic. So I moved here to the outskirts of Londinium, about let's say 10 years ago. Okay. Uh-huh. And at the time, I was really specializing in photographing conferences. And my clients were international corporates. So really, they would set up a conference wherever, and then they'd basically hire me and fly me out to wherever. And, and then I would come back to my little provincial, suburban area here. And I could have lived anywhere, it really didn't matter. Yeah. But then the pandemic hit and that entire industry disappeared from one day to the next. And I very quickly realized that, the mistake that I had made was I put all my eggs into one basket. I didn't have any connections with smaller local businesses, local businesses that could have kept me over water at the time, and so I realized that was a major mistake that I made. What I should have done is I should have created multiple pillars so that if one thing failed, I would still have a backup. But, if in 2019 anybody would have said, well, you know what, the whole conference industry worldwide is going to tank, people would have called you crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I call that pivoting, but also pillars. I really like that phraseology about having different pillars. And I think it's interesting as working professionals, sometimes you have to, I don't know, maybe reduce our egos a little bit. So I'll give you another example. Recognizing that the entertainment industry is shifting so much, and I have a pretty decent pedigree in what I do, and I've been doing it 100 years. I started reaching out to pharmaceutical retouching. Well, I don't have as wide a breadth of work that I can show in the pharmaceutical industry, and a lot of jobs I was working on were lower end jobs. It was perfect. I got trained in a whole new way of looking at people and products and needs. And now that's growing exponentially like this. Would I have said a couple years ago I needed to do that? No. But, life changes and changes fast now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very often it's an ego thing. I can honestly admit that, before the pandemic, I used to think, well, my clients are international corporates. I don't have to work for, the mom and pop shop down the road, the nail studio.
Yeah, and take that lower rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And, why would I do that? Let the lowly photographers deal with
yes.
plebs, in a sense.
Right.
That totally came and bit me in the ass very, very, very quickly, and in my case, I literally thought maybe I should join some networking groups or something to get to know people, that was one thing I did. Or, I just, I would say I put on a suit. I didn't. I just went into, I just walked into some local businesses and said, hey, here's my card. This is what
your hair.
Yeah. I was like, okay, is it too frizzy? No. And that's really what I did, in the very beginning, of course, most small businesses were shut as well. But then when it started opening up again, that gave me an opportunity to do things. But it's when times get tough, you gotta diversify, as they say.
Yeah, and also I have to say, the other issue I was concerned about is there's that adage that I used to hear that the minute you lower your rates, you're dead. You're dead. Because that from then on, your rates are going to be low. And that was not accurate. It was like, great, I am moving into a new industry. They don't know me. The clients I was using, the budgets were way lower. But it didn't mean I had to stay there. And it didn't mean my other clients knew that I was taking a reduced rate to do this other work. So that's another misnomer I think folks should get rid of. You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, again, there's these two polar opposites in terms of opinion. One line of thought is you gotta niche down. You gotta become the expert in this one little thing, and then you can charge considerably more because you're now the expert in this one little thing. Right. And the other attitude is, well, diversify, take whatever it takes and basically cast your net wide. And that way, you create, more volume at a lower price. It's this, volume against price type of thing.
I'll tell you another thing too, I think about diversifying is, especially with the challenges with AI. Look, I am not a prompt writer. This girl and words, no, hard no. So as AI is expanding, I outsource now. So I'll take jobs that don't require the same traditional methods of retouching, and I need to do some fairly sophisticated AI stuff because I've cast out my net wider, as you just illustrated. I will hire out. So I'll take less money because I have to contract out to somebody else, but then we get more jobs. So there's a way to kind of negotiate that, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And, because you can, you just do a simple YouTube search or something, you'll find these two opposing opinions, are virtually always at war with each other. Because, you hear people say, no, you've got to niche down, diversification will kill your business, blah, blah, blah. And they're very, very opinionated on that. Mm-hmm. But what I found out is that, all this well and good, but it all really depends on the economic environment that you're in at a time. Because as soon as things, as you've described earlier, as soon as things change in the economy, for example, you might have to adapt your model.
Yeah.
In order to stay relevant.
There's level of risk that people are willing to sit with. I do not do risk well. I do not like risk. I want to know my mortgage is paid. I've got a kid. I need to make sure things are good. So my risk taking is minimal. And I think it's important for people to know where they live. And that's why I diversify. So I bet you find with the folks who you interview that there's polar views, and it works for both of them. Like if Bob says A is perfect and George says C is perfect, then they're both perfect. They're just perfect for them individually.
Exactly. And at a certain point in time, because this is the other thing that happens, that over time, conditions change. And so therefore, the way that you have to react to those conditions changes. And so you have to change your business model depending on what the environment is, and that's also totally true. If I just think when I first started this podcast, literally at the beginning of the pandemic, the situation was vastly different from the way it was now. And it had just changed dramatically from the way it was before, And then
I think back when the last time we talked, my life is completely different now. Completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I loved catching up with people, because it's just unbelievable how many things change. And this may be a change caused by some environmental thing, like a pandemic, for example, or it might be a political change, or it might be, I don't know, all of a sudden there's a war going on somewhere and then everything tanks, You just, that is the thing. You just can't ever really foresee the future.
I think that's one of the blessings of being photographers, though, is, boy, we pivot monkeys. We can make something with a piece of tape, a clip, and a stick. If anybody's going to survive this, I think this is photographers, because you're so good at monkeying things together.
Oh, absolutely. Give me a potato and I'll take a picture with it somehow.
Yeah.
It might be a potato picture, but hey, I'll do something. It's this thing. If I think when my grandmother started this thing in 1938, right? I mean, how things have changed. If she was still alive today, she would not even recognize the industry at all anymore. It's so different.
Yeah. I mean, imagine technology. I mean, sweet Jesus, this has changed. And it changes weekly. I mean, I do Lightroom stuff and Lightroom instruction. And every week I'm like, oh my God, what did they just add? Oh, you can do that? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's incredible. What I'm really getting into at the moment is editing on iPad. I'm really liking the whole iPad thing. And I'm trying, especially I think for small volumes, for individual images and things. I'm trying to sort of move my headspace over to the iPad. For most edits. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Because it's, there's so many advantages to that.
Yeah. Well, and it's a dark room. It's a dark room in your hands. So
yeah. And you can sit on the couch whilst you're doing it. It's perfect.
Yeah. Or be on an airplane or be on a beach somewhere or be anywhere. Absolutely. That's why I've been able to travel more actually as well, is because the mobile has gotten so flexible.
In what way have you sort of noticed that the client expectations have changed over that period?
That's interesting. I just had a meeting, a Zoom meeting right before this call, and I was talking to the client about an approach, what we should do for this particular pharma job. And finally, at one point, I said, "Do you even want to know how I'm doing this, or do you just want to know that I'll get you the result?" And the guy said, "You know what? Yeah, I don't care how you do it." And it's because technology is changing so much. The same vocabulary is not the same. What kind of technique are we using? And so we talk about input and output. Like, what are we starting with? Where are our originals? Who's shooting this? Let's get on ground zero with that. What are your output needs? I'll fill in the rest. And that never used to be the case. It used to be like, well, what are we doing this? How are we doing this? What's the process? They wanted to know every step. Now they're just like, just get it done.
Because I think it gets too complicated, to follow all the different, new things that are happening all the time. I had actually a very similar a similar phone conversation earlier today, where I was talking to a market research company, small startup company. It's just a bunch of people. And they were interested in headshots at first, but as we were talking about it, it turned out that headshots were not really the right solution for them as a company, because they are, they're not your average market research company. They are very left field. They're very creative, bright red hair. Their clients, are not, their ideal client is not a corporate bot,
Right.
They focus on small companies, and so the standard approach of going down like the corporate headshot route for their new website wouldn't be right. It just doesn't fit this, But what they really didn't have was creative vision. They knew they didn't want a corporate image, but they didn't really know what they needed instead. And unfortunately, their web designer just went, "Oh, just get stock footage. Just get stock photos." And I'm like, how is that? That's going to do the exact opposite of what you want.
Yes. Yeah. It's not who you are.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps.
They needed to display individuality. They needed to bring across their personality in order to attract the kind of clients that they want to attract.
Yeah.
By putting up a corporate front, which is ultimately fake, they were never going to be able to attract the kind of clients that they were trying to attract.
Can you imagine the disconnect they would have? Because the clients who might come are not the clients who want them.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden it's like a bait and switch. Like, oh, actually, we're creative spazzes. Aren't we great? Oh, wait, we weren't. Oh. And then there's someone who is looking for that.
Exactly. That's exactly the thing. Disconnect is a really good word, because it just, it just would never work. So we had a chat about some creative concepts, and how we could creatively display it's three ladies that run this company, how we could creatively display their personalities without making it, a stuffy business portrait, basically, So I thought, like, well, just if somebody's a swimmer, for example, let's, and mainly deals with, spreadsheets and likes to, and deals with numbers, let's put her in like a blow up swim ring thing, and shoot her like with like strict looking glasses and a calculator, and in front of a pool or something, and let's make something that's a little creative.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can't wait to see that.
Well, so that was the idea. So basically, my thing was like, I know this is left field. This might be too left field for you, but you're going to have to go back and think about your company philosophy and find out how left field you want to go, because I can tone this down, any which way, but you just have to now decide where you are at, and then we can work on a brief, and then I can put this together. But it was so important for them to just figure out who they are. They just knew what they're not, but they hadn't really figured out who they were.
And for you to know to lean into that and be like, you know what? Pause. I got a better idea. I had a pharma client where it was a bailout job. So it was a badly retouched job, and they just wanted it fixed. And I was looking at this and I said, you know what? I know you don't know me because there's a brand new client. I said, this looks terrible. And it's not about just fixing it. Like the direction is lying. Who are you visually? Who are you trying to speak to? I mean, what a cow to say something like this. But I knew it. I was like, you know what? Who are you talking to? Because that picture is talking to someone from 1980. And you're trying to talk to a 20-year-old. And so we did a rehair. We redid the whole thing on a bailout job that was already late.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of being, I don't know, a little brave and say, you know what? I think I can help you, but we're going to go way over here instead.
I think we have to do that sometimes, as creators.
No, 100%. Yeah. And I feel like maybe it's legacy, like being in the industry so long, that knowing that is my job to tell them. It's not just to say, you want A? I will give you A. And in my back of my head going, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. It's the wrong style. It's the wrong whatever. And it can be offensive to some clients, but isn't that what I'm paid for, is to give my professional opinion? Yeah.
And also the realization that not every client is your client.
Oh, amen to that. Say that again. Not every client is your client.
Exactly.
150%.
That's the thing.
Everybody. I am not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's folks who have a different aesthetic. There was a gal I saw over the summer, and she had done this huge production photo shoot. And she showed me her portraits, headshots. She was so excited by them. And I looked at them and I was like, oh my God, these are awful. These are so 1980s, early 1990s style. This gal loved them. And I was like, oh, that's her visual voice. Awesome.
Yeah.
She never should do a job with me because I don't see in that way. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's it. Colored gelled vignettes is all I'm saying.
Yes.
It's
as a matter of fact, yes.
Exactly.
Oh my God, is it coming back? Oh God, is that what's happening right now?
Well, I don't know. It seems to be coming back 3 miles from me.
But hey, who am I to say?
So exactly, but it's this thing. I mean, again, even in the same general area, different business models exist, and different clients have different needs. And so I think you just have to decide on what kind of needs you want to, fulfill, sort of thing. It's the reason why I call those images, glorified passport pictures, is because they're shot in no time at all. It's when you go to like a little, what we call a high street photo studio or something. What are they called over here? Happy Snaps or Snappy Snaps or something like that. It's like a chain.
Sounds like a different kind of business, honey.
Well, yeah, it's one of these chains, and you'll see them in like high streets. You basically go in, you pay $10 for passport pictures. They sit you down in front of this reflective white background. They point a camera at you. They take a couple of pictures. They print them out immediately. That is it. There's no posing. There's no lighting per se. There's nothing. It's just as easy as that. And I think sometimes, especially at the very low end, when you look at headshots, that's exactly what happens. Client comes in, you sit them down, you get your lights set up the way they always set up, you get your camera settings that you always use. Boom, you get them out the door, and volume is king. So it's a low cost, high volume. Type of idea.
And that's what that industry warrants. I will tell you though, have you run into this? I had a very interesting thing this past year about user generated content. So what the clients wanted, it was a cosmetic company, and we were doing lockups and these product layouts, making them all look perfect, seams in different scenes. And then the marketing director came back and said, we're testing, and everything that's running user generated content is hitting harder. And I was like, great, what does that mean? And basically it was make them look shitty. Sorry if I can say that word. Make them look bad. And I was like, oh, I can do that. You don't have to get rid of me. You don't have to go find a low-end shooter or something. We can degrade the quality if that's the look you're looking for. And so that was a really interesting process to figure out, great, we can have both. We'll have the high-end look, and then we'll do the user-generated content. And you guys can use, especially because that stuff trends and then it goes out the door. So you don't want to be stuck.
Exactly. So the thing is, like, I always think everything's cool if it's done with intent. If you're doing user-generated low-quality content because you can't do anything else, that's a problem.
Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, the thing is, like, I know this from a number of smaller businesses that I've worked with, especially sort of in the restaurant business or in the bar business.
Yeah.
for a lot of businesses in that industry, it is about appearing youthful, trendy, and if all of your customers spend all that time using the iPhone to shoot vertical video and it all looks the way it looks, shaky, in inverted commas, unprofessional, off the hoof, then that is the look they're used to. So if you can bring your message into that realm, you're immediately connecting with the people that are looking for it. But this is the connect thing that you mentioned earlier, connecting with your audience or with your potential clients. That's the thing.
And you mentioned something really, really important, I think, is if that's all you can do, then there might be trouble. Because great, if you hire a student or someone who doesn't know any better and the look is that way because they don't know any better, well, that business is going to have no longevity.
Yeah.
Speaking as a content producer, you want to, I can reduce, change, shift, pivot. And that's important, I think, for photographers to remember that, you can deliver a different look because you've got skill.
Exactly. Right? And from when you take it from the client's perspective, this is sort of the advice I always give, especially with like branding kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You want to really have a mix of a number of different things. You want the high-end glossy stuff because that, conveys professionalism, whatever the thing is. It creates trust, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then you also want to connect with the audience. So you might want to have a mix of different content across social media. Maybe your website is the thing where all the high-end stuff lives. Maybe your social media channels is the thing where it's a little bit more easygoing because you're trying to get into that layer of society in a sense, So
and I think it's important for the brief, like as you as the content producer, or me as a content producer, is to bring that up in the brief. Like, hey, great, yes, let's produce content A that is user generated look, but let's make this evergreen. What do you need for your professional site or your marketing site or your banking site, or you know what I mean? Like absolutely usages for who you're talking to.
Again, absolutely, because I had a meeting with a client yesterday, in fact. So this is all about. So we shot. So actually, I had my youngest daughter assisted me for the first time on a video shoot. So we shot a music a music school end of year concert. So they did 2 concerts back to back. We shot the whole thing, multiple camera setups, with a roaming cam. So it turned into this, a multi-cam edit, blah, blah, blah.
Nice.
But the client realized that, we've got all of this content of like 40 odd students performing, across these 2 concerts. Now, they want to use that as marketing collateral. They want to use that in different ways across social media, obviously on the website, on the YouTube channel, blah, 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 blah. They want to send stuff out to the parents, but they didn't really know what they actually needed. So this is where you come in as a professional. You're going to go, okay, here's what we'll do. We've got this whole 2-hour performance, but we're also going to create a 60-second video. We're also going to create some vertical video. I also shot some testimonials on the day. We've got that as extra content, And the thing then is, for me, purely from a business perspective, is that now I'm expanding the scope of the job, because like in this case, this is not. Yeah, exactly, because this was not an atypical or an unusual sort of situation where basically, you create a scope of work in the beginning, but then later on, as sort of an add-on or follow-up to this project, it becomes evident that, okay, well, now with the testimonials, we can do what we intended, but there are also other options. And that's, from my perspective, I can say, cool, I'm happy to do that. I think this would be useful, but here's how much that's going to cost you. Because, So,
and this is pivoting, isn't it? This is how you keep your business going. Yeah.
Absolutely. Plus, I save money on assistance fees because I'm training up my youngest daughter.
Very smart. Very smart. I know. Kids got to start somewhere.
Hey, she's actually, I'm training her up to use Adobe Express to do some of my social media for the podcast. Because this is another thing. This is another thing in this crazy world of multimedia, social media, content, avalanche, tsunami creation type of thing. It's nuts. I don't. There aren't enough hours in the day.
This is what I meant by outsourcing my AI. I can't learn it fast enough. I cannot. And everything's changing. Meaning, so for example, my Lightroom is changing, right? And then, oh, wait, what's Stable Diffusion? What's Midjourney doing? Oh, wait, what's Adobe Express doing? Wait, what did they do in Photoshop this week? Huh? How do you stay on top of it?
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard to, so getting help doesn't suck, right?
Absolutely. It's vital, really.
Yeah. I think you just nailed it. It is vital. It's vital to get other folks so you're not overextended. And look, you're also bringing up the next generation. So how cool is that?
Exactly. And also, I think it's a fair point to think, I like these elements of what I do. I really like to do these bits, but those are the things I don't like. And so therefore, it's legit to basically say, well, I hired somebody else to do that. Maybe because I don't like it, or maybe because I don't understand it. Like, take taxes. I mean, most people hire an accountant because they don't really understand how taxes work.
That's a really, really excellent point. When I just had a job for Paramount and I had to outsource, I felt I needed to outsource an AI thing for a rug. It was a rug. Now, could I have spent 6 hours figuring out how to create this rug from a teeny little patch that matched exactly? Yeah, I probably could have. But is that a good use of my time? No. So I sourced that out. I did another part of the job and then picked up a different job. And then it came back the next morning from my AI dude. And I was like, thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what to do. I battled with my taxes. The reason why I mentioned taxes was because I was battling with my taxes last financial year. So far, I've been able to do my taxes by myself because it's actually not that difficult, generally speaking. Because of the way the system works in the UK, it's all online. It's pretty straightforward. But as things are growing, things become more complicated just because of the scale of it, right? And so the last time I decided to use some AI tools to help me organize a lot of the data, to simplify things when I actually punched them into my spreadsheet. And although I liked the basic idea of it, and it cut down my time dramatically, by the end of it, however, I came out and I thought, you know what, this sucks so bad. I am going to 100% hire an accountant next year, but screw that.
Yeah, because it's just not worth your mental energy when you've got your whole industry is already shifting. I mean, that's the thing that that's not a little thing. Our entire workflow industry is shifting. How I do a project now is not how I did a project 2 years ago. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do my taxes too and learn how to use AI for that? No.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I remember when we were discussing AI last time, and I remember you said, because I think I asked you, what kind of impact is AI going to have on retouching? And I remember you said, the thing about high-end retouching is that there's still so many layers that you have to control, and you have to go back in and change things that really AI is never really going to touch that. There's always going to be a need for hands-on retouching, and yet here we are 2 years later.
Yes. Well, I would argue that still holds true. It's just a question of whose hands are then touching it.
Right.
So what I mean by that is do they need a high-end retoucher like me, or can a junior designer actually get it, manipulate it enough to get it where they need? Now, luckily, a lot of that is still, dare I say, a little hard for people. And there's also aesthetics. There's actually the ability to look at something and go, that's wrong. That head's too big, or that shadow's off, or that color's not matching. But it has already dramatically decreased my work. I assure you, more of there's less volume being asked for, first of all, problem number one. That less content is being produced. So they're asking for less work. Second of all, the level of work, more of it is getting done by lower end retouchers because they can do it, because the tools are getting better and faster and easier to use. There's still work coming my way. It's just decreased significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are clients beginning to ask for AI-generated content specifically at this point?
Yes. Not in entertainment, but in the other content, yes. Like that, it's fully acknowledged it's going to be AI content.
Yeah. Do you think that AI-generated image, because this is the thing that I've been thinking about. It's, when you come across something that's been AI generated, whether it's a person, there's a thing I talk about this all the time because it freaks me out. There's a thing, there's like a trendy thing that's happening at the moment. Probably by the time you're listening to this podcast or watching this on YouTube or whatever, this probably would have been months ago. But there's a thing going on, like AI generated video that features a Sasquatch stroke Yeti. Okay. And when it first started, it was super hilarious. It freaked me out completely. But, there's basically there's a Bigfoot who's being sold magic mushrooms by a gang of raccoons.
Of course.
Of course. It's just a funny idea. And then, the Sasquatch, this Bigfoot, is like vlogging at the same time, with like a selfie stick sort of thing. And the thing that really fascinated me about this was the photorealism of it was just out of this world, to the point where, and I think I've described this in a previous episode, but there's one thing where he's running, he's been chased through the forest and it's raining, and he's running away from somebody, but he's vlogging at the same time. I mean, the level of detail was such that there were even raindrops on the camera lens as he was, and you look at it and you go, I bet you, had I filmed that, I wouldn't have even thought of that. Do you know? It's a level of detail where you think, and then of course I came across some video on YouTube of a guy explaining how he can do this in like under 8 minutes, Yeah. And I'm just.
So, and you said something earlier, I would like point back. So we were talking about user-generated content, right? That look. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, if the people, the clients are looking at images through this and their world vision is from here. So in the entertainment work, AI stuff looks AI. The big question is, do they care? Are people going to care if that is what the audience is used to looking at? And I may sound like a little bitter Betty here, but I don't think they care. I don't think the studios care right now. I don't think the ad agencies care. And I don't think the general public cares. Artists care, photographers care, but I don't think the general public cares.
And this is exactly the question I was going to ask is, do you think that aesthetic, that AI aesthetic mm-hmm. is becoming, or is sort of influencing the sort of almost like beauty standards?
Yes.
That we're used to. Is crazy.
Yes. Now I think it's going to change. There'll be a pendulum eventually. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. But for right now, yes. How could it not, honey? It's what people are consuming. If people are doom scrolling, they look at, advertisers thinking, well, what are people doom scrolling? What are they looking at? And we're going to mimic that. So yeah, how could it not? Here's a weird analogy. I was having a good conversation with some friends last night about copywriting and copy correction and spell check and how spell check's not being used as much. Well, if AI is being trained on public speak, grammar is going to change. And so what's going to happen is, I think like things like AI spell checking or people using that is our form of speaking is going to change. And it may be incorrect, improper English, for example, because as an English speaker, it's all I'm familiar with. But eventually that will become the norm because that's what AI is doing. And who's going to push back? I mean, us dinosaurs are going to die. We're going to die out. And the kids are going to be like, well, that's how we said it. So
there's two things that I find interesting. I'm generally interested in linguistics because I communicate in another language. And although my brain is completely retuned into English, in fact, my German is getting so rusty. It's,
that's funny.
Well, it is hilarious. There's a technical term for it as well, which I can't remember. But, the thing that I notice, of course, when I go back to Germany is, and I haven't lived there in 30 years. So just over 30 years. What I notice is that because language is a living, breathing thing that's continuously moving on, developing and changing. When I listen to my younger cousins speak, I'm constantly thinking, I understand everything you say. I just don't know what you mean.
Wow.
Because
That's exciting.
because they use language in a slightly different way, and it's not completely different. I still get, obviously I understand what they're saying, but they would say things, they would use vocabulary in a way that I just wouldn't, so maybe to them I sound old fashioned, maybe like, like the transatlantic, accent from the 1950s,
Exactly
that's the
right.
thing.
Well, I mean, about when people say, "Oh, that's sick," or "That's fire," or it's like, "That's fire." It's pretty good. But
Yeah.
for example, okay, this is a stupid ass example, but I'll give it to you. When I was living in France, and my soon become British husband had come over and looked at a construction job I had done, and he said, "Oh, that's tits," and I was like, "Oh, that's good, right?" Because men like tits. No, evidently that's not good. And I'm like, but you like those. So why would that word be used for something that's bad? And then he's explaining tits up and dead. And I was like, oh, God, it's so complicated. I hope that's not vulgar.
No, it's fine. It's like, this is, it's a European podcast. We say whatever we want. Well, hey.
Oh, okay.
It is true. It's really, it's the same. There's a comedy sketch. Oh, who is it? I think it's this. It's a Norwegian guy. He does this skit on the word shit. Like, the shit is good, but if something is shit, it's bad. The whole thing.
Yes.
So it's interesting. I mean, and of course the same thing.
On AI.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's just to me, it's just interesting how how things are changing, and likewise how. Actually, one thing that I read the other day. I read a thing on how the English language might change in the future. Okay. And so
I'm curious.
I was basically interested to know, like, in 50 years from now, how would the language have changed?
Yeah.
And apparently, because I noticed this change already, right? So even in the time that I've been living in, Anglophile countries, I've noticed there's been a change. Like, for instance, being excited about and being excited for. Now, all my kids would virtually exclusively say, I'm really excited for that. And I tell you, when I first moved to the UK in the mid-90s, that would have not been a thing. That would have been completely wrong. He would have said, I'm really excited about that. And it's, little things like that where...
It's a little thing.
It's a little thing.
We have something that folks say now when you walk into a establishment, welcome in.
Right.
Welcome in. How about just welcome, or why welcome in?
Yeah.
And I find that really confusing. Or even if I have a 21-year-old, and if I ask him, like, do you want a cup of coffee, or do you want to, X, Y, Z? And he'll say, I'm good. And I'm like, well, is that a yes or no?
Yeah.
I know you're good. I know you're great. Yes or no to the coffee?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you're a dinosaur. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
That's it. But that's the thing. Yeah. But it's like, you can't keep up. I mean, I've tried to keep up with my kids. Impossible. They came up with things like, there was one thing a few years ago that was really, in fashion. It was an expression called on fleek. Something was on fleek, which I think means it was good. Every time.
I just love, sweetheart. I just love that you don't even know. You're like, maybe.
I think, so when I turn it around now, and of course now I annoy them, because, I would say, they would tell me something. They're older now. My older kids are now, they're at university. So, they actually know how to speak by now, and then I turn around and go, oh, it's really on fleek. And they just look at me, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Just back to something we're talking about off camera earlier, about vocabulary and speaking and how we talk about things. This is a perfect segue to that, I think, about what we do in our languaging. So we were talking about, you had done that seminar about the photography is dead.
Yes.
And I have this notion that the vocabulary words we're using for what we are producing as content, I think it's going to change, and I think it's going to matter. I think that, like, what I do, I'm a heavy editor. I capture all the time. I shoot every day with this thing, and I'm making all kinds of stuff. I had just recently posted something from Patmos, Greece, and it was this day for night shot. And people were like, oh, wow, great photo. And I was like, you know what? Is that really a photo?
Right.
Because it was so heavily edited. It was a full daytime shot. I added stars. I added a lens flare. I completely changed the whole scenario. And I feel like I'm struggling calling that photography.
Right.
Really struggling, because for a traditional photographer, I am not.
Yeah. But this is the thing you mentioned earlier, that now, instead of saying shooting a picture, we're capturing an image.
Yeah.
Again, it sort of goes to me in my non-native English speaking mind. There's sort of a difference in when I'm shooting something. I freeze something that is there. Yet when I'm capturing something, I just capture elements from this scene that I might combine with another capture from another scene. It's kind of, to me, leaves it more flexible in a sense.
That's really interesting, because I think that's fascinating, because I think of capturing as I'm capturing a moment.
Right.
But I actually consider myself a visual storyteller. I like to tell stories. So when I create images, I am, and my entertainment stuff is the same, where I'm trying to create a mood or a feel or tell a story ultimately. So I don't care how I get there. I don't care what car I'm driving. I don't care what method. Is it capturing with an Android with Leica lenses? Is it on an iPhone? Am I in Photoshop? Am I in Lightroom? Did I use a third-party app? I don't care. But other people care. And why do we care? Because of what we call it. Because I say photography, and they're like, well, hold on, lady, that's not a photo. Is it a picture?
Yeah. This is the eternal debate that goes on in camera clubs, around the globe, I think.
Yes.
Is this still photography? I think and you're right, because there's two ways of looking at it. You can look at it, and these are not exclusively, they're not necessarily exclusive. But I think one way of looking at it is to look at the end result, and exactly as you explained, to think like, right, I'm just thinking about the end result. I've got this vision in my head, and to me, it doesn't matter how I get there. I will use any tool at my disposal to realize that vision, and that is it. And that's like the true. That's like, spoken like a true artist in a sense. I don't care how I get there. I have this vision, and whatever technique I can use, I will just do that. That immediately means that it basically legitimizes anything from composites to AI to whatever, right? The other way of thinking is that the process matters. So this is the other thing, the other opposite. Where, for instance, an extreme example might be film photography, right? It's a completely different process of creating an image, and some people just love that process and are really married to that process and just enjoy the process of making this thing. And so they are immediately going to be biased towards the outcome.
Yeah.
And for them, digital photography is not real photography anymore, because now it's deviating from the process that they love so much.
Right. And yet the process that they love, but what's the end result? Like, so it's interesting. I did a couple years back, I did an amazing course on tintype. Like, I went to a tintype workshop in Los Angeles.
Oh, cool.
And these dudes had it so awesome. They had, do you know what a Holga camera is?
Yes. Yeah.
They had plates cut down for a Holga. So I did self-portraits with a Holga, plastic Holga camera. Wow. And then, of course, we did the giant 8x10, 1909 camera. I was covered in chemistry for weeks after. I had stains all over myself. Oh my God, the chemistry was so vile. I love the accidental nature of the photos. Loved them. Loved shooting it, all of it. It was amazing. But I also know what it looks like now. And I can make that. I can make that same look digital. So for the viewer, does it matter how I got to the road?
Correct.
As the artist. So I think, and this is where we as a community have trouble speaking. Because if I get my end result and you're happy with it, how I got there shouldn't matter.
To the client, yes.
It's about
absolutely. Yeah.
To the client or the even other photographers. Because boy, there's some pushback. I know film is coming back. I'm old school. I came from film. I handline my own color, my own black and white, hand printed color photography, even because I'm that old. I know what film looks like. I know what T-Max 3200 looks like. So I can emulate that. Does that make it any less valuable for the end result? I don't think so. But someone's going to email you and say I'm wrong. I'm sure of it.
Oh, 100%. The thing about film is, I love film. I love shooting on film. I'm not very good, by my own admission. To me, it's more of a, because, I really, I got into the photography industry really when everything was solidly digital, but I grew up, surrounded by, my dad and my grandmother who would shoot everything in film, right? And so, I grew up with the chemicals and the, and the dark rooms and
Instamatic cameras, the Kodachrome, Ektachrome, all the good stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. Instamatic cameras. I'm telling you, I had a Kodamatic when I was a kid. My dad gave me he got me a Kodamatic. I don't know if you remember, but Kodak got sued by Polaroid. They lost the court case, and then all of a sudden. And I love that camera. I really love that camera. It's such a cool camera. Yeah. It's huge. It was chunky, but it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And the immediacy of that is so awesome. In art school, when I was going to Art Center in Pasadena, my portfolio was all Polaroid. All Polaroid.
Fantastic. I still like Instax. I still shoot on Instax. I took my Instax out with me yesterday. There is something, the immediacy of it, and also the finality of it. Once that thing is it is done.
Yes. No more editing.
No more editing, exactly.
Yes.
And also it's sort of it's a measure, in a sense, it's a measure of your skill as a photographer, in a way. And I think this is the thing that attracts me to film. It's because it's not a medium that I'm really trained in hands-on. To me, it's a thing where I think, how do I measure up against my dad and my grandmother? Because I look at some of their work and I'm thinking, this is freaking, it's incredible, right? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Am I good enough? I would say it's this thing, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Am I kidding myself that I can create that look on, I can do that in Photoshop, but am I kidding myself in a sense? Am I technically as good a photographer or not, so this to me, that's like the driving force again. But and I have to say, I haven't cracked it quite yet. I can create a better film look in Photoshop than I can actually create in film.
It takes skill. Yeah,
it takes skill. It takes skill also. The depth of knowledge when it comes to the development process as well.
Yeah. Are you developing your own?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. That's where.
Oh, okay. Because most folks who I know are doing film, they're not developing their own stuff. And so I'm like, well, you have no control over the lab, which changes everything.
Exactly. And this is where, exposing something correctly is not that difficult. It's not that hard,
Yeah.
In fact, I made a video about
processing. How old's the chemistry? How long is it staying in the fixer and the developer? Is it old? Is it hot in there?
Yes, exactly. What's the temperature? How many rolls have you developed with that chemistry so far?
Right. Yeah.
All of that matters, It's like,
it matters.
Yeah. And then, what film are you using and how does that, it's a science, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I know some people, I know some street photographers over here in London whose work is just out of this world, Yeah. And just, talking to them sometimes, like, again, the depth of knowledge is it's just an interesting thing. As always, if you're the kind of person who likes to learn new things, you look at something and you go, I can barely scratch the surface.
Right. And there's something to admire about that. But I have to say, I think it's interesting because this may be a weird analogy, but when I look at Olympic pole vaulters and the skill they have, which is awesome. And I can look at that and go, that's so inspiring.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know how to do that to do what I want to create. Like, yeah, it's awesome. They're great. So there's just a little in our industry, I feel like, photo industry I'm talking about particularly. I think there's a little pushback about your validity if you know how to do technique 1 to whatever. And I'm like, well, what's the end result? Maybe that's all that matters is the end result.
And I think you're right. Yeah,
outward facing.
That's right. And commercially, you're absolutely right, because the client doesn't care how you got there. They're just interested in the end result. The difference, though, if you look at that purely through a commercial lens, is that, of course, if you're really skilled at something, it takes you 3 hours to get the result as opposed to 12 hours. That immediately has an impact on your bottom line. And that's where the skill comes in. That's where it becomes important. Yeah. The end result might be the same, but.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, is it? It's and I always find this, like, I think I told you this, I may have said this on the podcast we did last time, I don't remember, but it was a long time ago and I got interviewed for a black and white magazine about my iPhone photography. And I was like, you don't call it Nikon photography. You don't call it Hasselblad photography.
True.
Why are we talking about the device? Why aren't we talking about the work? Do you like the work?
Yeah.
Because everything in that magazine was about the work, other people's work. But the conversation they were having with me was about, oh my God, it's on an iPhone. And I was like,
That's true. It's interesting. It's interesting, really, because it's actually true. The minute you say to somebody, I took that on my iPhone or smartphone or whatever you call it these days, it diminishes the quality of the work, when really, if you didn't know, it would have made no difference.
Yeah, like that Greek photo I was talking about earlier, capture, whatever the heck we were supposed to call it these days. If you didn't know I didn't shoot that at night, does it change how you feel about the picture? And it probably does. And why? Why does it change your opinion of what you're looking at?
Yeah. And of course, then, there's always this thing where I think sometimes when I read things about images, where the focus is so on the technique that, let's just take that as an example. Let's say, you read something about an image that was taken at night, but it was like taken during the day, but it was made to look like it was at night. It was just like, in film, in the world of movies, this is a very standard technique. You shoot something during the day,
wait for night.
Like that, And the question is always like, and then you go into, the technique used to give it that look, unbelievable, blah, blah, it's super complicated. We did this and that, and it was elaborate and blah, blah, blah. And then you just turn around and you go like, why don't you just shoot it at night?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I have a lot of reasons for that.
For sure. There would be lots of reasons to do, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And does that differentiate what the end result was? I love talking about this. I think this is so fascinating. Like, is the image less valid in the way that it was captured, other than the person had the idea for the vision?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like the story that's produced is the story. And to me, that's what's very important. And as a trained photographer, my degree's in photography, I think it's really unusual that I say this, that the process, to me, the process doesn't matter other than for the personal person who it matters to. The end result for the communication doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Because I think if you're an image maker, a friend of mine actually calls himself a lens-based artist. So he stopped calling himself a photographer. He's now calling himself a lens-based artist, because he just uses any method under the sun to create his work. And it might be an iPhone one day, and it might be a camera the next day, and it might be a potato on the third day. But it's true, because I think when you look at it from an artist's point of view, so like we said earlier, you have a vision. You want to realize that somehow. And in one particular instance, these techniques matter. And in another instance, other techniques matter. Yeah. And next week, Adobe have come out with something else that's crazy, and
No.
then that technique may make perfect sense in order to create the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And I grapple with this. I don't grapple with it personally in my production of my work. I grapple with it in how do I talk about it?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to mislead anybody ever.
Yeah.
I don't want to act like I'm something that I'm not. But
yeah, it's. I think there's also there's a difference between like professional work in a sense, and just stuff that you just kind of create to almost like fulfill your creative needs. Because.
Well, tell me more, because why? Why is it there? Why is it different?
Because I think you can experiment. You can afford to experiment with stuff that, for instance, that's not necessarily a commercial job. Like I can't really afford to experiment. I have to use processes that are in my that I proven and tested, because I can't afford to screw up for the client. But when
I agree.
When I'm doing something where I just wake up one morning and go, oh, I've got this idea. I wonder how I could do that.
Yeah.
And then if I try something and it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Like there's no client that's going to scream at me.
You don't do this on the client time. No, give you an answer.
That's the thing. I mean,
well, it's funny. That's why one of the things why I shoot, and I'm on this every day, every single day, trying something. And what I've been doing lately is I will see something out in the world, a technique or a look. I'm like, God, how would I do that on this? And I practice so that if I have a job and then I'm like, oh, I know how to make that look. I'm not doing that while the clock is spinning. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get this done. Yeah.
I think that's a super important, just generally, that's a important way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
So you don't want to experiment when you're like, when you're on a job.
No.
I think, who did I talk to about this? I can't remember now. But this whole idea of backwards engineering. Oh, I think I talked to somebody about that in the context of music, because that's kind of what you do when you learn an instrument, especially the guitar. This is at least what I did when I was a kid. You hear something and you go, I wonder how they did that.
I think
you listen. But it's like the same in photography. You look at a picture and you go, I wonder how they shot that.
Yeah. How do you make it look like that? Yeah.
Exactly. And so in the beginning, when you learn lighting, you start to learn how to read the light, and you go, oh, okay, I realize the light was in this position, and then you learn how to catch lights, and you go, and it was a square softbox.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
Yeah.
And you just learn how to read those signs, and then you're still going to have to put yourself into that position where you're trying stuff out, because all of a sudden, little details become important and make a massive difference. What's the angle? How much feather?
Can you imagine like this bad retouching look comes in and they want, you have to learn how to go, oh, flip the people, set the lights on the wrong side for the background. And well, have some friend that comes in and will be like, oh my God, no.
I mean, can you imagine if everybody started using things like Evodo or Aperture or something, without any retouching experience at all, and everything was turned up to 11, and all of a sudden the new standard was like completely mega blown out skin, like you're like, oh God, that's the new look now.
And it may happen. I mean, I've been in the industry long enough that I've seen these huge trends in terms of level of retouching, what's expected, what they want, and oh my God, the 90s were terrible. Late 90s, early 2000s. And then we got a little more natural, then photo filters, Instagram filters. Now guess where we're heading to again.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, that's a good question. Where are we heading to at the moment? What is the trend at the moment when it comes to retouching?
Well, one of the things that I'm finding by the time this airs, it'll be done. Because welcome to my world, that actually older women my age, tend to want less retouching. And oddly enough, younger women want more, because they've been doing their Instagram filters and whatnot. So they want more. And the older folks are like, no, thank you.
There was a conversation I had yesterday with somebody, which actually completely links onto that. And this had to do with how much work, especially ladies, have done in terms of Botox and everything else. And the interesting thing is that currently there's a trend for older ladies to have less work done, but for younger ladies to have more work done. And the problem with that is, you see, and actually, as I shoot boxing for a charity, so I shoot boxing events fairly regularly, and so boxing events, yeah. So they raise money for cancer research. But the thing is, in between the rounds, you've got ring girls running around with a number, blah blah, traditional thing. These are usually relatively young girls, maybe 18, 19, 20 years old, 21, something like that. I tell you, a lot of them look like they're 30. And the reason why they look like 30 is because they already have so much work done.
Yeah.
And, it's this thing where you kind of go, this is really bizarre. Because I'm old enough to remember where older women wanted to have more work done in order to look younger. But now it seems younger girls want to have more work done so they look like an Instagram meme of themselves. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. No, it's weird. And it's the nature of the beast because what they're looking at, isn't it? Yeah. And it's pickly.
And it's not only girls, by the way, it's also guys.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's unfortunate, I think. But again, it's the nature of what are they looking at? What's on here? Exactly. What are they seeing other people do? And so anyway, that is a trend, though. I like the trend of older women letting ourselves be. Love that. Don't love that the younger girls want more. Also, it's a really interesting thing business-wise. So a lot of the people I deal with on the first tier of retouching in entertainment are younger. So I've had a couple, I won't name what the jobs were because I can't do that, but there were a couple jobs very recently within the last 2 months where there was a female performer actress who the client had me shave her body down. And I'm like, nope, she's proud of that body. Don't do it. And they're like, no, shave her down. And I'm like, sure enough, it went. And it was like, no, where'd her body go? Because that particular artist, older, likes her body. And then there was another actress who, it was a big headshot for a job. And the younger client, gal, had me over retouch it. And, I can only push back as much as I can push back. And then sure enough, it came back and was like, oh, because it goes to the actress.
Right. Okay.
And the actress is like, no, thank you. So that's an interesting trend. But unfortunately for me, if the first line is a younger level of aesthetic, the person who is viewing the first line, they're going to push towards their aesthetic. And then you've got the person who gets final sign off and they've got a different aesthetic.
That's actually interesting. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that the actor in the end has the final sign off on that.
Class A-level actors do, yes.
Right. Okay. Cool. So if you're not important enough, then that's not happening.
Yeah. If it's not in your contract, it's not in your contract. Yeah. So, but it's an interesting trend. I will say that trend, thank God, is what's keeping me employed, though, because if you could just push a filter button and have it be over retouched and have everyone sign off on it, then great. But newer retouchers only know how to do that. And when the client comes back and says, I want less, they can't just put it on 50% opacity because a lot of those retouching apps, the AI apps, will actually distort the face. It doesn't just reduce wrinkles. It literally will change the lines. And then you can't put that at 50% opacity because then it won't line up.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you've also been involved in education for a long time.
Yeah.
With all of these changes happening left, right, and center, what kind of impact does that have on your educational courses, for example, the stuff that you teach?
Actually, for me, that's kind of a boon because I come from old school and old school production. I can talk about pitfalls. So it's not like, oh, hey, this new plugin, you should totally use it. I can be like, great, you should use this plugin, but you have to use it at the end. Because if your client comes back and says you need it reduced 50%, you have to redo the process. So for me, it's changed how I teach because I've talked about a different workflow, but it's actually giving me more opportunity to teach, if that makes sense.
Would you use things like Evoto, for example, or Luminous? Or Luminous Apathy, for example, how would you use that, and where in the workflow would you use that?
Great, let's talk about that. I think Evoto is fucking amazing. It's a great, great, great software. I think it's the biggest pitfall is what I call a slider jockey. And that means people are sliding the sliders too far. So for me, where I use Evoto, and I use it on almost all my jobs, I love it, at the very end. So I do the entire composite. I do everything I think I should do. And then I'll run it through Evoto. I will save my presets in Evoto with the job name. And then I send the job to the client. And then when they have revisions, I can rerun it through Evoto because I have the settings saved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, and on a product like Evoto, never color, never masking, never that stuff, because I need to be flexible. And if you do color in Evoto, you're kind of screwed unless you have a client direct where it's a one-off. It's not going to, God, how do I explain this to you? I'm trying to think of the number of people that have to sign off on your average entertainment job. I'm going to guess it's 15 different people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, the levels are incredible. From junior designer up to account executive, up to publicists, up to actors, up to showrunners. I mean, it could obviously at various jobs, but it can be a ton of people. So you have to be able to go back to ground zero at any time on my jobs.
So would you use something like Evoto, for example, like for skin retouching, for example?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. But I do it at the end.
Right.
Because I have to be able to pull it back. So I have my basic spotting, the non-questionables. No one's going to, say, I'll put that scratch back in the background. Sure. Then I do, how do I explain this? I do basic work. Then I'll do body shaping, like manipulation work. Then I'll make all that into a smart object or a copy, layer copy, whatever. Send it to Evoto, run it through Evoto, keep the presets, run it back, and then have the color work on top. And then that way, if there's a revision, like let's say I trimmed a jaw or, my sock neck, I'd love to get rid of my sock neck. What if I got rid of too much of the sock neck? And then I moved the shirt. Well, I moved the shirt first, then do the sock neck retouching, and then put it back to. Does that make sense? That's not too weird to talk about. You just feel to go backwards.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense, because I'm just trying to think how that compares to my process. And it's actually not too dissimilar, although I've gotten in the habit of bouncing. So traditionally, before the event of Evoto and Aperte and whatnot, my workflow was kind of, I kept bouncing back and forth between Photoshop and Lightroom, just because I just preferred the user interface on Lightroom. So for instance, I would do some basic stuff on Lightroom. Then I would hop into Photoshop, do all the compositing, bigger stuff, getting rid of stuff in the background, all that kind of jazz. Some frequency separation, quite a lot of that. Thank you for your course on Creative Life, by the way, without which I wouldn't be able to do that. Totally true. You told me everything I know. And I had to watch that course 3 times, by the way, because the first time I watched it was like, I have no idea what is going on here. And then,
Yeah, sorry. It's a little complicated.
It's one of those things, though. I love that technique, because once it clicks, there's something in your head that goes cling, and then you go, I totally understand how this works now.
Yeah. And it changes stuff, retouching for other stuff, too, like adding textures when you need it, et cetera. It's amazing. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, I would do that. Then I would basically hop back into Lightroom, rather than Camera Raw, because my brain looks at the Lightroom user interface and goes, I like it,
But Camera Raw is Lightroom.
I know, but it looks different, and it's got nothing. It really is just because it looks different. That's all it is. Like
silly monkey.
I'm such a visual person that the minute they change the sliders to be a little bit fatter, I'm like, I don't like it. And
isn't it funny? We should put a user request in that you can, on the interface, click a button, have it look like Lightroom.
If they did
Wouldn't that be great?
I tell you that right now, if they did that, absolutely. There is no reason for it to look any different. There isn't. Yeah. Why does it look different? It makes zero sense. It's a lazy.
Different team. Yep. It's different teams. Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
Exactly.
Okay. So anyway, continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Yeah, no, but it's totally valuable, because this has always been one of my major gripes, is the fact that actually there is no reason for me to hop back into Lightroom. There really isn't. And I still do it because I'm just so, this sounds very harsh. And I don't mean it to sound like harsh, but I'm really kind of disgusted with the way the camera roll looks.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Hey, it's whatever process works for you.
Absolutely. But so
also,
so just,
if I'm not wrong, your stuff, you're kind of the decider. You and your client, you don't have 15 people signing off on stuff, do you?
correct. Absolutely. It's the client that signs off.
So that workflow can be easier to manage.
So, I mean, I have, I've learned the hard way that, I want to create a situation where I can dive back in and make changes at every level. So I keep it.
Yeah.
I do it in a way that I can, and in the same way that when you describe, I do the same thing. I save the settings that I use I use Apathy for Evolve, the same thing, more or less. And I save that as a preset. Yeah. I save the settings so I can dive back in later if I need to, because I have been in that. I got burned, several times where a client comes.
It only has to happen one or two times, and you're like, never again.
Exactly right. Because it means, I remember one time I had a client, and they were from, I can't remember whether it was the Pakistani community or the Indian community, but they had an issue with the skin tone, basically the darkness of their skin tone.
Yeah.
And I really was not aware of the fact that in that community, that it really matters how light or how dark your skin is. I just wasn't aware of that. I just tried to make him look as natural as I could, without any ill intention or anything. But as I've learned, it's a big issue, so I'm more sensitive to that now, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was like, all right, so now I'm going to have to basically restart the whole thing again because I didn't, at the time. And just like you said, you do that once and you go, you couldn't figure it out.
Well, it's hard too, because I know when I'm working on stuff and I want to do the color and lighting and everything, and Lightroom is so great, so much you could do in the masking. I want to do it right at first blush, right when I open it.
Yeah.
And I go, no, Lisa, you're not allowed to do that. No, because I have to go back. I don't want to have to double retouch. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. And this is the thing. So yeah. So I was just going through in my head. I was going through my own workflow, and I'm just comparing to yours. And there's certain similarities with that. Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting to me is I tend to do the body shaping towards the end rather than.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think you should, because anything it's questionable. So body shaping and like the Evoto type process, I put at the end, on the top, under the color. Because, kind of like that actress I was telling you about, the young account executive said, oh, trim her down. And I'm like, no, she's proud of those hips. No. But I had to do it. Yeah. But I didn't want to double retouch.
Yeah. So in a sense, because there's so many new techniques and technologies and, and products really, that have, the last time we spoke, Evoto didn't even exist to my knowledge.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah. Does that give you immediately more ammunition to teach?
100%. And I'll tell you another thing. It's why I teach.
Right. Because
when you teach, you have to stay on top of this stuff. You have to. And I think it's fair to say that there's some folks in my industry who have been doing it as long as I have, who may have a slightly harder time keeping up with it because you have to do it on your own. There's no impetus. It's you going, oh, should I investigate some different applications? Versus I've got a teaching client who's like, great, we're doing AI beauty retouching. What is out there? What's good? What should people use or not use? Could you investigate these 5 applications for me? And I'm like, yes, I'll be happy to do that. And so teaching forces me in a way to stay on top of this.
Have you ever thought about setting up your own YouTube channel and teaching that way?
I do have a YouTube channel. I just don't update it. I will be honest. It's so funny. I think the universe works in magical ways that you're actually asking me this, because I was just having a conversation with someone about this last week. Because my entertainment work is slowing up, I have more time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should start reposting and talk about new techniques. Because seriously, there was something I'm always scouring new techniques, and there's some dude on the internet who uses these really old school techniques, and there was something he showed, and I was like, holy shit, wait a minute, that's a good technique. Wait a minute, I haven't seen that used in 10 years. Maybe that needs to be brought back out. So yeah, I probably should do.
Cool. We could do what do they call it? A collab. Well, I create a really terrible image, which I'm an expert in, and you turn it into something amazing. That could work well.
I have to, you know what I think would be so fun is to have how do you do this? So for Jesus, Ramirez, who you had on your show, who I love dearly.
Yeah.
It's about to become a father. Very exciting.
Oh.
He works so differently than me. And it would be so cool to be like, hey, here's a basic image, or here's this. This is how Jesus approaches this problem. Oh, this is how Lisa approaches this problem. Oh, this is how Rob DeWinter approaches this. You know what I mean? And just see different techniques, because something will work for someone.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, but this is the beauty. This is the beauty with something like Photoshop, and I've always found that because you always get this from people who maybe are trying to dive into Photoshop and then get put off by the fact that it seems like there's 10 different methods of doing the same thing. When I always think this is the beauty of it, because it means that one method might work really well in one context, but as soon as the context changes, you might run into a problem. But then there's another magic.
It's one of the reasons Photoshop is such a leading industry application still, because there's 10 ways to do the exact same thing. And there's, as you just said, a different context why you would use it a different way.
And that's the advantage over sliders. Because with a slider, that's just one thing.
Yes. And goddamn Adobe, I'm sorry I said that. They changed the interface. So sometimes you have a slider that's just yes or no, and then there's a slider that's numbers. And it's like, well, wait a minute. There's no sliders you could split.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true. There are a couple of things that I thought that I really liked in Luminar, for example. What was it called? I think they had a slider called Drama. I think it was called Drama or Dramatic or something like that. And it basically gave you that crunchy look, the Joel Grimes look, stroke Vanelli look type of thing. I think Vanelli may have been responsible for the slider in the first place. But the thing I liked about this was that actually, it's just one slider that basically does a whole bunch of things.
It does a whole bunch of things. Yeah, entirely right. Because I think if it's like a high pass move, and then there's a texture and a clarity, and then the shadows move. Yeah. So there are things where I'm thinking like Lightroom could probably, could improve on that, because sometimes if I could move one slider instead of moving 5. Yeah. I mean,
I go for that.
Feature request keep asking for is in Photoshop, if they could just have it when you use Camera Raw, because I use Camera Raw on the top, much like you send it back to Lightroom.
Yeah.
I use Camera Raw on the top. And I would love, once the client signs off on something, could you just push a button and have that become adjustment layers?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be amazing? But there's
absolutely
technology for that, unfortunately. But that would be amazing, because it needs to be flexible. Because what we have to do in our work is our work has to be modular. So I just worked on the Fab, what is it, the Fab 4? The new superhero movie. Pedro's in it.
The Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four. Yeah, sorry. I'm so old. And you have to be able to move people from the left to the right or whatever because of different outputs, banners, etc. But if you have a Camera Raw on the top, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to, everything. So, anywho. One day.
If you look back through your career in retouching, what do you think was the most defining moment?
That's a really good question. Oddly enough, and I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but it's when I realized, one, I don't have to know how to do everything, because so much pressure to know everything. And two, how do I want to say this? That there's good enough.
Right.
There's good enough for the job. Do you understand what I mean? Like trying to make things perfect. And sometimes the job doesn't warrant perfect. So imagine you've got a cast of 15 people stripped into a scene made of 15 different shots, and you have a week to get that done. That's hard. And then if that little tree on the back had a little fringe, doesn't matter. Well, where's that going? Oh, it's only on social. But, I was losing my hair trying to get it all perfect. And it's like, no, sometimes there's good enough.
Yeah.
And I know it seems like a weird thing to be defining, but to just know that I'm good, like it's enough.
I think that is super. It's really, really important to ask that question: is how good is good enough? And it doesn't. I always think the way I look at it is it's not cop out. It's not like how can I get away with doing the minimal amount of work? It's more like being realistic about what the end use actually is, and not wasting your time trying to do something that's not warranted. In this particular situation, it doesn't mean whether you.
Because for me, it's not wasting time. Sorry. Yeah, it's not about wasting time. It's like even having the time. Like, do I have to stay up 16 hours?
Exactly.
A day?
Yeah.
For that one hair in the corner.
Exactly.
That will never show on social.
What does success look like for you now compared to, let's say, 10 years ago?
Oh, that's a really good question. Success to me now versus 10 years ago. Really good interactions with my client, like how my clients feel and how I feel at the end of it is almost more important than the product. That may sound crackers, but I spent so much time doing this that I just want to make sure I have good relationships with people. And that, dare I say, sometimes is more important than, wow, look at that piece on my portfolio. Doesn't that look great? So I've had some jobs where no one will ever see them. They're jobs that they're so either low end or so abstract, but they were really hard, and I really helped someone and I helped them keep their job. That's success to me. That makes me feel really good. It's no longer what it used to look like 10 years ago was, can I walk down the street and see how many of those posters are mine? Or when I'm streaming, how many are those mine? It was almost like a quantity game. And that no longer matters to me as much. How many are mine? It's how's the process.
What's next for you? What have you got coming up in the near future?
What do I have coming up? What do I have coming? I don't know, actually. I have to tell you, it's interesting. I've been traveling a lot and doing a lot of photography. And so I'm not quite sure what's migrating. Like, work is slowing down a little in the entertainment industry. So maybe I'll focus more. Maybe I'll have a show. Maybe actually produce some work. I'm also, I don't know which side. I'm doing painting. See a little eyeball? Wait, there you go. I'm trying to oil paint. Yeah. So, yes. So, that's a Bryce Chapman piece above me. I'm sorry. You think I'd know which side is that. That's not my photo. That's Bryce Chapman. He's an awesome photographer. Anyway, I'm learning how to paint. And it's actually making me a better retoucher, but I effing suck at it. Oil painting is so hard. And it's really good for me. So that's very important to me right now, is actually learning how to paint.
Fantastic. Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show again. I'm sure it won't be the last time. It was always an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's so super interesting. It's so super interesting because, first of all, I always learn a ton, when I talk to you.
Oh, awesome.
And obviously, for those of you for those of you who are still listening to this episode, because it's quite a long one, I'm pretty sure you would have learned a lot too. So, Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being the guest on the Camera Shake podcast this week.
For anyone who's listening, Adobe Max coming in October. That'll be broadcast. I've got a bunch of Lightroom sessions that'll be on there that they can broadcast and watch, and stream, and do all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay, folks, that is it for today. What an amazing conversation with Lisa Carney. So many insights into the world of high-end retouching and what it really takes to thrive in today's fast-moving creative industry. As always, before we go, let me just recommend another episode I think you'll enjoy. Check out episode 266 with Mark Wallace, where we discuss why collaboration might just be pivotal to transforming your photography career. If you enjoy our content, consider supporting us on buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us keep creating and bringing you more exciting episodes. It really does mean the world to us, and I don't know why I keep saying us, it's really just me. And don't forget, you can sign up for our newsletter over at www.camerashakepodcast.com to get exclusive insights, photography tips, and early access to episodes right in your inbox. For those of you listening to the audio version, did you know that there's a full video version over on YouTube with plenty of examples of our guests' work in full Technicolor? Well, just head over to YouTube, search for Camerashake Podcast, and you'll find all past episodes there. And if you're already on YouTube, make sure to drop us a comment, hit that like button, ring the bell, and share with your friends. Your engagement helps us reach photographers all over the world. Thanks so much for listening and watching. And remember, a new episode drops every Thursday. So make sure you mark that in your calendars, diaries, I don't know, parchments, whatever you kids use these days. Until next time, keep shaking things up in the world of photography. See you next Thursday.